Hello, everyone. My name is Lynette Johnston, and I'm here today. I just wanted to check the sound and make sure everyone can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Perfect. So my name is Lynette Johnston with F12. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on marketing automation, how to get the most out of your marketing in 2022. It's comprised of 30 minutes from our speakers, followed by questions from all of you. So feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. So let's get started. There are so many components in the marketing world that your customer experience could feel a little disjointed, and that's where marketing automation can really help. A combination of software and strategy that provides efficiency, but also allows a highly personalized approach, converting prospects into customers and customers into advocates. Everything from email marketing, social, SEO, and Google Analytics to web design, alignment of your CRM, and the ability to nurture leads and understand data. Automating your marketing brings all this in sync. And regardless of industry, today's audience wants a more personalized experience. So if marketing automation is part of your overall growth strategy, if it's not, then it should be a consideration for 2022. When thoughtfully integrated, it will provide many benefits and help you improve your customer journey. Our friends from Betach are going to share their wisdom on this topic. We're joined today by Luke Demeter, Sales Director, and Kendra Davidson, Marketing Analyst, to present their insights and give you some key takeaways. So I'll turn it over to Luke and Kendra to share their thoughts.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone, and appreciate that excellent introduction, Lynette. As you mentioned here, I think just as a bit of a state of the union of sorts.
Oh, I think Luke's audio just went off there, so he'll be back shortly. But just a few things that we wanted to chat about, State of the Union. So we'll go through just quick introductions, and then we'll go through some of the forecasting for marketing in 2022. So one of the big focuses that we've been focusing on is back to the basics. So I think, Luke, you're back.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I must have offended someone already on the webinar. God's got me. As Kendra mentioned, back to the basics. We're just trying to help others in, regardless of industry, shape their touch points with their customers. It's obviously a different engagement model than it was 2 years ago, whether that's even fully virtual, partially virtual, or even traditional. I think the demand has changed a little bit. So we chose to narrow it down on these few topics here, and hopefully this can you can take away a few valuable nuggets. That's both of us, and just a little brief about Betach Solutions, I suppose, so you have some context. We are a primarily Dynamics 365 ERP and CRM focused systems integrator in the Microsoft space. But really, on the marketing automation solutions, we work with other products outside of the Microsoft traditional Microsoft realm, and really have been focusing on helping people build out their marketing automation platforms for about the last 3-4 years now. So, shifting into trying to hit the ground running as fast as we could here in the start of January, we had been looking at some figures and trying to look ahead for the next 12 months. And we think here's some interesting tidbits and stats. I know for me, my eyes kind of go to 2 of these 5, the 6 hours a week, more time. Anytime I can capture more productivity time during the golden hours between Monday and the end of day Friday, I'm certainly interested in lending an ear. And then certainly that 80% metric here where users saw the number of leads increase. So if I can have more activity in less time, that's the equation I'm interested in. Kendra, any of those that pop out to you or anything you want to expand on there?
No, I think the 80% speaks a lot, especially with not only seeing your leads increase, but also those conversions increase as well.
So, a few things to be thinking about this year. Really, it's centered around your technology stack. What's your message, and who is your audience? So how are you articulating that message to your audience? Where are you articulating that, and when, I guess, would be what we refer to as the omni-channel or real-time marketing elements. And how are you personalizing it? Because I think if you're taking a standard stock, maybe not to pick on a specific gym that's a brand name gym in across the country here, but it's funny, I never seem to get much in terms of marketing material or communications from them throughout the course of the year. But there's about a 3-week stretch, the last week of December and the first 2 weeks of January, a drop mailer ends up in an unaddressed drop mailer ends up in my mailbox. Well, that's interesting and tactical in the sense that they've positioned it at that right time of year for people to get back on the treadmill. Could it be better? Could it be more personalized? And could it speak to me? And therefore, then could it lead to a higher conversion ratio? So those are some things I think that a good, well thought out marketing automation platform can do for you. If you're thinking about that, you're moving away from the anonymous and shotgun spray and pray approach to the one-to-one and personalized approach. Kendra, do you want to anything on that?
Yeah, just a few things to add. When we're thinking about your story, I think one of the biggest parts, especially now coming into 2022, is selling your story. So if we think about the younger generation that's coming into the market now, where are they? It's less about having your customers come to you and more about you going to your customers. So where are they living? Where are they spending their most time? And it's time for us to meet them where that time is spent.
Yeah, and I think even from a account management sales perspective, I don't know if that's how your organizations are structured, but there's only so much time in the day to spend on active opportunities and working with active customer engagement. So knowing that you have an engine that's functioning behind the scenes in an automated fashion to further nurture and further fill the pipeline and further educate your client base, I think is a big win. And education is what takes the most time. If you subscribe to the Malcolm Gladwell books or the 10,000 Hours series, if you can use your marketing automation platform to educate people on their own, I think that's a big win. So I suppose we should maybe arrive at a common definition here of marketing automation. I don't know if anybody has any opinions on this definition, but I think just as a common baseline, this is what we're working from here as a marketing automation definition. So something that can help in a technology, obviously, that can help in a structured and automated fashion. And to touch on all of that, what we mentioned earlier, the personalized experience aspect. So what's happening here in the current state of marketing automation, and what are some of the tools that we're using here? Kendra, do you want to dig deeper on all of these and start to provide some context on these components?
Yeah, so these are the main aspects of what would construct an actual marketing automation. So a lot of times, if you're a smaller business, you may start off small. You may start off with something like social media automation, where you can batch out and really schedule out all of your posts. Then slowly, as you start to build that out, you can start working into things like email marketing, building out your audience and those customer journeys, personalizing that experience like Luke was just mentioning. And then as you start to build that out, you can really start to generate and nurture and manage all of those leads that are coming in through all of those different points of your campaigns. As you start to build out your platforms and your tools, then you can start to really work in digital advertisements. How are you integrating your forms within your website? You can really start looking even into event management, and then into that real-time marketing and really placing yourself in all of those different points where your customers would be.
So Kendra, I'm going to challenge you with 2 questions, and I'm wondering if people have those questions themselves. What would be the benefit of integrating some of these landing pages and forms directly into the website?
So by integrating all of that, especially if you have customers that are already in a database, let's say if you have a CRM, you're able to capture all of that insight. You're able to see all those interactions that those customers are having. Once you have that insight, then you can start to build out that personalized experience, because you can see, like, let's say if I'm on a retail store and I start to look at certain types of things on that store, you can start to then maybe have an email that gets sent out to me personalizing, hey, we saw you looking at this. you may also like this. So you can start to make those personalized, relevant content for the people that are actually interacting with your business.
Okay, excellent answer. Question number 2. In your words, what's the definition of real-time marketing?
Real-time marketing, I mean, it can be different for everybody, and it's also different for every business. But I would say it's marketing to your customers in a real space. So whether that be I get a push notification when I walk through the door because I signed up for your Wi-Fi, or if I'm at a baseball game and I'm interacting with something during a break. So I think it really speaks its name, and it's really about that instant interaction that you're having with a business and how your business is then reacting to it.
Okay, and bonus question before we move along here. There's a lot of content here and a lot of components to this. If people are looking for the first piece to get started with, what would you suggest they start with from the content on the slide here?
So I would say social media marketing. That's probably your easiest way and your cheapest way to get started, especially with all these different tools that you can get your hands on. If you haven't begun with anything in email marketing or building out landing pages and forms, social media is right at our fingertips, and it's one of the number one things that people are using nowadays to get to know your business. So I think that would be the number one place to start.
Excellent. Okay. Well, why don't we start to talk about an actual example here? Give us a bit of context here with this story for this group. So they're a membership-based association, and they push out a lot of communications to further create awareness on their cause at a top level. But talk us through the story if you could.
Yeah, so this company here deals a lot with government campaigns. So one of the biggest things that they need to be careful with is castle compliance. Same with GDPR. So following all those different rules, and by using their CRM, they can make sure that they're abiding by those policies, with still keeping up with their memberships and providing relevant information, educational information. But then they can also then report on all of that engagement, especially being an advocacy organization who deals with government funding, sponsorships, donors. Those reports are super important to then provide to see how campaigns are going, truly, so that they can get more money. So I think one of the big things is being able to see all of that information and insight in one place, as well as managing and continuing those campaigns.
Yeah, I would say that is industry agnostic. Showing ROI is always paramount, whether that's in
Mhm.
a advocacy scenario like that or in other industries. Okay, looks like we have our first poll here. So I'll ask if Lynette could pop up the poll for the crowd. You should see that in the chat on the right hand side here. So our poll is, what type of marketing automation tools are you using today? We've got Dynamics, HubSpot, Marketo, MailChimp, other. If you want to just plug it in the chat, that would be great. And we'll wait a few more seconds here to see the results from everyone. Are we going to close off the poll here? Looks like we have 15 votes. Voting's closed. Thanks everyone for that. Just waiting for the results to pop up. Doesn't look like I can see them as the presenter, unfortunately. I can see that 15 people voted, so thanks very much for that. Not sure if, Lynette, you have the results on that for discussion purposes.
It looks like there was a combination, Luke, between Dynamics, HubSpot, and MailChimp, and then
Awesome.
a lot of people choosing other.
Excellent. So we'll choose other as perhaps the world's largest database, a combination of Excel and Outlook to some extent, which we are very familiar with, and don't be shy about that. So back to basics. What exactly does that mean? I know that can mean a lot of things, and I guess the theme here, especially if you're looking at this and saying, well, back to basics, we haven't even started with all of this, so how can we go back to the basics? And I guess what we really want to do is just convey the message that it's not anything extremely sophisticated or new or that's going to force a tremendous amount of disruption or reinvention of your business, but it's really kind of the staple pieces that we have listed on the slide here. And then it's just a matter of refinement and improvement and doing those more effectively in a more integrated and automated fashion.
Yeah, so I can speak on this one here. This stat I actually really like. So one big thing is we say, not to judge a book by its cover, but it is in human nature to do so, unfortunately. And this here just speaks on itself that you have 0.05 seconds to make that impression. So when we talk about website, when people are landing on your page, it truly is a first impression. And so as much as we want to say that visuals don't matter, they absolutely do. And it's really making that first impression that's going to determine if they're going to stay, figure out and find out who you are, what you stand for, or if they're gonna hop out and they're gonna find somebody else.
Yeah, I think to further that, wouldn't discredit the value of well-designed visual animations to some extent where applicable or appropriate. Certainly the use of video in a well thought out fashion, and maybe a bit more of a technical component, but the page, your page load time will really overall, it will impact. It may seem to the human eye something that you can't necessarily tell, but it will impact your overall search results and your overall web experience. So having that first page load time being as lightning quick as possible is a big boost.
Yeah, and so I think one of the big questions is, do I truly need a website? And really, our website, if we're thinking about where people are spending their time, it's online, and this is how they're going to figure out who you are and what your business does. For me, I think the biggest one is increasing your credibility. So alongside having those visuals to your website, also having a clear indication of what your business is. I think one of the big things is when people come onto your website, they need to know you exist first. They need to know that they need to be known what you do. Secondly would be actually learning what you stand for, selling your story. What does your business do? Thirdly is once they've understood that, it's then trusting that they can do it for you. That would then bring you into the last part, which would be value. And so once you've established that relationship, then you've gained that person's trust. That person then can actually see the value that your business can bring to them. And I think website is a really great way to start, especially if you don't have those tools just yet. Your website's a great way to do that at the beginning of this journey.
Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but when I stumble upon a site for the first time, or I'm pointed there by whatever means that may be, tend to fall on the About Us page first. Who are these people? What are they doing? Do they have the credibility and knowledge to help me in whatever I'm seeking at this point in time? And at the end of the day, I think you have to remember that people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Another customer example here of a group, financial wealth management and estate planning. You want to talk about trustworthiness, and certainly a topic as sensitive as your estate. That is something that takes that appropriate level of thought in terms of domain expertise and trustworthiness built up through their web properties, and obviously that is something that this group did with a number of in-person, and then when being forced to move those virtual, the virtual webinar as part of their strategy. So Kendra, do you want to expand on the component of the webinar, just in how that's functioning in their overall multi-channel marketing strategy?
Yeah, so it was a big adaptation to have to move, especially based on their audience, to being an older generation audience, moving that online. And so that journey from going in person to webinar was quite extensive, but having full webinar integration from all the way from your registration to post follow-up, and then also being able to see exactly how people are going through that journey, any pain points, building off of those pain points and finding solutions to them, I think was having a digital platform that actually supported that was really important for, especially for moving forward, scaling even on a digital scale, or being forced to go digital, was super important for them.
Yeah, I think as much as sometimes these web events may feel a bit taxing or impersonal, I think one of the silver linings and learnings from people who have embraced them is the ability to expand beyond your traditional geographic borders in particular. So having people outside of your typical physical catchment area where they would come in person, as great as that is, it just expands it.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a bit here and centering around the email marketing piece, because Kendra, as you said, starting with social is one tactic. I think the other common area where we see people is just starting with even a monthly newsletter and getting some type of routine touch point and communications out to the people that they're engaging with. So I think a lot of people, and maybe this is just spending a bit too much time in the tech space, there's a notion that email is dead. I think a funny thing happens with all people, millennial or Gen Z or younger, whatever future generations are forthcoming. An interesting thing happens at one point in time. They enter the workforce and they get a work email, and then all of a sudden email is relevant to even to them. So I think that's a linchpin piece of your overall strategy, and it's something that is common to all, and certainly a platform that can lead people to your web properties or your other social channels and things of that sort. Kendra, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you said it well. It's kind of like a spider web. It's all interconnected.
Yeah. So anything you want to expand on here, just in terms of tactics that people can take away and start to employ in their day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things is the easy to measure. So by having everything in one space, you're actually able to see all those insights and then build off those insights. So it's a great way, especially if you have one person on your marketing team. If you're dealing with email marketing and marketing automation, it's a great way to push out different campaigns, even if you have a small team. So it doesn't matter with marketing automation if you have one person on your team or 10 people on your team. There's still going to be benefits of using email marketing and automation.
Excellent. Well, let's slide in another poll here at this point. Lynette should be able to fire that out there. So how did you establish your email marketing goals? If you have, I guess this implies that if you have email marketing goals, how did you establish them? Have you surveyed customers that you're working with for input? Taking a close look at what your competitors are doing, took direction from someone on staff internally, and or perhaps the fourth option here, we're just not sure where to start at this point. Leave that open for a few seconds. And Kendra, maybe just as the poll is closing, you want to expand on some of the components here of the email marketing basics so people really get a good sense of this, because I feel like this could be a good spot to dig into.
Yeah, so I would say that there's four different levels of your basic email marketing. So you'd first start off with what we call segmentation. Segmentation would be equivalent to building out your audience. So this is a super important part to start with, especially with how you're building out the criteria of what that audience looks like. How are you defining it? Who are you really trying to target? As you build that out, then you can start to move into your actual content, your email design, building out your assets. What's relevant to that audience that you've built out? I think there was a question in the chat there. Just if you're adding to that noise and if it really is benefit, I think if you've built out relevant information based on your target audience, it wouldn't be considered noise at that point. So once you've built that out, you can then move into your customer journey. And this is, again, how you can make even more granular, in a sense that how are you building out that customer's experience? How are you wanting them to flow through that path? Do you want to add a sales rep after they open an email? Does it trigger a sales rep call, or does it trigger a creation of a new lead? How are you building that experience out? I would then say it then moves into, once you've built out all of those different parts of your email marketing, then you can start to lead into lead scoring. So what lead scoring is really just a way to grade your different leads that are coming in, whether they're hot leads, warm or cold. You can really start to build out that criteria and keep track of what's your priority nurture, who should you be spending your most time with, who's ready to go qualified sales lead, who needs more time. So you can really start to build all of that scoring out based on that above work that you've done. within your email marketing.
Yeah, that's a couple good points there, Kendra. And just looks like the poll is up here. Most of the audience here, over half, taking direction from internal staff is the predominant funny answer. A few people that are starting down that path, trying to establish goals. I think it's interesting that the only under 10% of people have surveyed their customers for input. Might be a tactic you want to take a look at. Another chat question here from Brian, just in terms of the opinion of video marketing. I think video is paramount, especially if you can hook that into the email. In terms of that email component that you're sending out, it's a great catch and can drive some additional conversion to folks. So yes, I would suggest, if you have good video content and maybe even soliciting some of your customer testimonials and stories, that's a great place to start with that. Let's shoot over to the segmentation. I know we're starting to run a little long on time here, but just in terms of segmenting your customer base, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your customers, could be targets, prospective customers, partners that you work with, but essentially the ability to segment them out by geography, revenue, industry type, title, experience, all of those factors. If you're not thinking about doing that, you really should be. And then taking those segments, creating some kind of weighting metric in terms of a classification. I'll even simplify it as an A being high, a D being low, and then targeting your focus in terms of time, effort, and marketing automation around that as well. From a design point of view, Kendra, you're the person with the design eye. Anything you wanted to add on here?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about relevance, that's where your email design would come into play. So keeping consistent with your brand, but also keeping consistent with the relevancy of who you're sending it to. So all the way from font, content, text, images, all of those things that make up your email are all just as equally important.
Yeah, here's just a quick visual for everyone. Obviously, we've referred to this concept of a customer journey a few times here, but essentially trigger points where you're sending them an email. If they act, they're getting one response. If they don't act, they're getting another. Certainly with factoring in the lead scoring here, that'll just pop up on the next slide here. This is where we start to marry those two concepts up together. So if they're of a certain weighting criteria, we can send them down one customer journey or sequence pathway, or we can send them down an alternative. I think that's the other spot where you can start to build in some intelligence to say, we have a lead scoring model here, and if something's reached a certain threshold, it no longer needs to be a digital automated relationship where we're talking to that person with canned content, albeit well presented and well structured canned content. We can start to trigger some additional notifications of people to let them know it's time to engage. Anything we should not do here, Kendra?
Yeah, and I think this is, we won't spend too much time on it, but I think the biggest thing is all of these different points here are going to ultimately affect your sender reputation and your domain authentication. And so these are super important things to be thinking about, especially in a digital world. Mobile-friendly emails, mobile-friendly website, those are all things to be thinking about, especially with GDPR guidelines and CASL compliance. Those are big things that are all going to ultimately affect that reputation that you have with your business.
Would totally agree. So in terms of best practices, here's some things that everyone should think about and take away. Anything else from your point of view, Kendra?
I think we've talked a lot about some of these points, especially personalization, segmentation, so the relevancy. One thing to call out is that a lot of people don't think about is autoresponders. So it's a really great way to keep a human aspect to your business. So let's say somebody fills out an ebook form or a contact us form, even just a simple email reply saying, hey, look, we got your email. We'll be contacting you shortly, is just a great way to keep those touch points within that customer's journey.
Yeah, agree here. We've mentioned a few times just around retail or real-time marketing in terms of interaction with other channels. So, I think that future state scenario, for example, you walk into a sports venue, hypothetically, maybe in the future, you've connected to the Wi-Fi there, and as part of that data estate, you're getting some personalized ads pushed to you on your device while you're at the game, just as an example. Anything you wanted to add on that one, Kendra?
No, I think that's good.
Just a question here from the chat from Sandra. I'll answer it or ask it here. Do you have any suggestions on what to start with if you don't currently have any tools?
So I would say, depending on what you're looking to do, if you're getting overwhelmed with the types of tools on the market, social media tools are great to start with, especially if you haven't worked with any marketing tools prior to. But there are other options, things like Dynamics or HubSpot, that have aspects of all of marketing automation in it. So not only email marketing, but also social automation within it. So there's great tools out there that can incorporate all different aspects of your marketing.
Yeah, and that's actually a tremendous segue to the paid advertising aspect of things. I think not having a tremendous amount in place, one of the things we've experienced and learned with this, that it's very easy to come up with a set of ads or a campaign of where you're thinking you want to target and really tightly control the budget in terms of who the audience could potentially be and what your expenditure would be. Just as an example, we ran a campaign on a new topic here in the month of December. Obviously, you factor in the Christmas holidays. We're not sure how many people are going to be around. We can A/B split test that. And one of the things we learned right away, after 7 days, you see ad A is performing 95% better than ad B, and you can be agile and shift on the fly. So I think there's a lot of good learnings if you dedicate yourself to that and set a realistic budget, and you can probably learn some good lessons around what your message ought to be, and then grow from there.
Yeah, just one thing to add to not dismiss strategy as well. So we have all these great tools ahead of us, but there still has to be a foundation too. So really, what your business is standing for, your brand consistency is super important, but also building out that audience. I would say that's the number one thing to start with, regardless if you're starting with email marketing or social automation. You want to build out, because ultimately, if you have the wrong audience, it's not going to work for you, right? So I think that would be one of the most important things to start with.
Mm-hmm. And that'll lead nicely into our third question here for the group. I think Lynette will pop that up. You should see that on the chat here shortly. I guess on a scale of 1 to 5, how well integrated is your marketing data into other systems in your business? 1 being not at all, 5 being completely. So I'll give everyone a few seconds on that. And I guess the rationale in terms of the why behind our question, I know many people have some form or level of a customer data platform and a customer data system. Sometimes that resides in the accounting platform. Sometimes it's in its own CRM, but really that in terms of customer data and customer information needs to be your organizational single source of truth. Kendra, anything that you want to expand on here? Just on the screen, you see a few sample records just around the contact record. So ideally, in a perfect world, the whole organization understands all of the touch points that a customer has in that contact record.
Yeah. So, and just something to add too is that that's all actionable data. So all of that interaction and engagement that customer is having, once it's there, the data is there. The data is there for you to use. So that comes into play when you're starting to even further build out that audience. You can start to then pull in all of that insight.
Just a couple of industry stats here on the value of a CRM, but I think as we grow more and more into the marketing automation aspects of our business, one of the things we're trying to keep our eye on and making sure that we're doing effectively here is integrating that data, and we're not coming up with a whole separate data set. So that can really lead you into some, as we've mentioned here, personalized customer sequencing is possible. But I really think the big win here, if you're effectively tying the two of these in together, is a lot of daily task automation. Something that's those things can be automated a lot more than they are previously. Kendra, anything you want to add on this story here around the customer story for the Student Association?
Yeah, so when we talk about insights and keeping that data, I think this is a big one for this customer of ours. So they deal a lot with career fairs with their student association, and it's being able to track all of that data alongside their students and their alumni, but also the third-party businesses that they're dealing with as well. Not only that, but also keeping track of different newsletters, events, opportunities, and then also that sponsorship and donor side as well. So being able to act on all of that data and really see who's benefiting their business and who's engaging, and then building campaigns off that.
Yeah, a couple great questions here from the chat. First one, do I really need to connect my do I really need to connect the solution to my CRM? No, I guess you don't need to necessarily, but I guess it depends on the couple variables. One, the size of your organization. I think what we've experienced with a lot of the product that's out in the market today, and marketing folks would have a set of tailor designed apps for them, whereas sellers or operational folks or finance people would have theirs. So it allows the end user to work in the correct format and tool set that helps them. But you're sharing the data across multiple apps, so it increases data integrity at the end of the day if you do, and opens the door to further scenarios where process automation becomes a possibility. Next question is, what happens if I have a CRM but feel our business is limited by it? Is it easy to switch? Oh, everything's relative. It's a great analogy I heard a number of years ago. Changing systems to some extent, depending on the size and scope of it, could almost be like a spinal transplant. It's not exactly something people sign up for. So all that to say, just what I was mentioning earlier with having the front end apps that are job specific or role specific in nature and sharing that information across business units tends to be the easier path as opposed to a larger re-implementation process. So hopefully that answers your question. And with that, I think we are pretty well wrapped up here. I'll pass it back to Lynette for closing remarks.
There we go. I'm back. Thank you so much, Luke and Kendra. That was amazing. I'm just looking to see if we have any other last minute questions that have come in. There's been some good ones. And I was even thinking about the CRM piece myself, because I know how important it is to tie everything back into your CRM. But if you don't have a good base, is it, you have to look for maybe another option, and it is a lot of work. So it's time definitely well invested. I'm just going to, you already have your email addresses on the screen. I was going to direct the audience to your website as well, betach.com. And then also want to let the audience know that F12 will continue to highlight some of our key partners through our webinar series and bring value to our network. The next one is actually February 16th, and we'll be joined by F12 CTO, Calvin Engen, and a couple of F12's partners for a discussion on cybersecurity and how to protect your business. So follow us online, sign up for that and future events. And I want to thank everyone for joining today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.